Historically and culturally among the most important nations in the Western world, France has played a highly significant role in international affairs, with former colonies in every corner of the globe. Bounded by the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, the Alps and the Pyrenees, France has long provided a geographic, economic, and linguistic bridge joining Northern and Southern Europe. France is among the globe's oldest nations, the product of an alliance of duchies and principalities under a single ruler in the Middle Ages. Today, as in that era, central authority is vested in the state, even though a measure of autonomy has been granted to the country's région in recent decades. The French people look to the state as the primary guardian of liberty, and the state in turn provides a generous program of amenities for its citizens, from free education to health care and pension plans. Even so, this centralist tendency is often at odds with another long-standing theme of the French nation: the insistence on the supremacy of the individual. The capital and by far the most important city of France is Paris, one of the world's preeminent cultural and commercial centers. A majestic city known as the Ville Lumière, or City of Light, Paris has often been remade, most famously in the mid-19th century under the command of Georges Eugène, who was committed to Napoleon III's vision of a modern city free of the choleric swamps and congested alleys of old, with broad avenues and a regular plan. Paris is now a sprawling metropolis, one of Europe's largest conurbations, but its historic heart can still be traversed in an evening's walk. France lies near the western end of the Great Eurasian landmass, largely between latitudes 42 degrees and 51 degrees north. Roughly hexagonal in outline, its continental territory is bordered on the northeast by Belgium and Luxembourg, on the east by Germany, Switzerland, and Italy, on the south by the Mediterranean Sea, Spain, and Andorra, on the west by the Bay of Biscay, and on the northwest by the English Channel. The French landscape, for the most part, is composed of relatively low-lying plains, plateaus, and older mountain blocks, or massifs. This pattern clearly predominates over that of the younger, high ranges, such as the Alps and the Pyrenees. Three main geologic regions are distinguishable: the skeletal remains of ancient mountains that make up the Hercynian massifs, the northern and western plains, and the higher young fold mountains in the south and southeast, including the Alps and the Pyrenees, with their attendant narrow plains. France lay outside the range of the great ice sheets that descended upon the northern part of Europe, so the direct sculpting of the land by ice was restricted to the Alps, the Pyrenees, the Vosges, Corsica, and the highest summits of the Massif Central. The physical structure of France is dominated by a group of ancient mountains in the shape of a gigantic V, the sides of which form the two branches of Hercynian folding that took place between 345 and 225 million years ago. These highlands are composed of resistant metamorphic, crystalline, and sedimentary rocks from the Paleozoic era, the last including coal deposits. Some variety is provided by subsequent deformation and faulting, such as in the ridge and valley areas of the Massif Armoritzen, where upland surfaces are deeply carved by valleys in dramatic fashion. Between the Ardennes, the Vosges, the Massif Central, and the Massif Armoritzen lie the sedimentary beds that make up the Paris Basin. Alternating beds of limestones, sands, and clays dip toward the central Paris Basin, their outcrops forming concentric patterns. Especially to the east, erosion has left the more resistant rocks, usually limestones, with a steep, outward-facing scarp edge and a gentler slope toward the basin's center. The central Paris Basin is filled by rocks from the Paleogene and Neogene periods, mostly limestones, that form the level plateaus of regions such as Beauce, Brie, Île-de-France, Valois, and Soissonnais. The river systems of France are determined by a major divide in the far eastern part of the country, running from the southern end of the Vosges, up to the Noir Mountains. The main river of the Paris Basin, the Seine, 485 miles in length, is joined upstream on the left bank by its tributary the Yonne, on the right bank south of Paris by the Marne, and north of the city by the Oise. While the Seine has a regular flow throughout the year, there may be flooding in the spring and, occasionally more severely, during the customary fall-winter peak of lowland rivers. The Loire, the longest French river, flows for 634 miles and drains the widest area. It is an extremely irregular river, with an outflow 8 times greater in December and January than in August and September. Rising in the Massif Central on Mount Gerbier de Jaune, it flows northward over impervious terrain, with many gorge-like sections. Within the Paris Basin, the Loire continues to flow northward, as if to join the Seine system, but then takes a wide bend to the west to enter the Atlantic past Nantes and Saint-Nazaire. On a broad general scale, virtually the whole of France can be classified in the zone of brown forest soils, or brown earths. These soils, which develop under deciduous forest cover in temperate climatic conditions, are of excellent agricultural value. Some climate-related variation can be detected within the French brown earth group. In the high rainfall and somewhat cool conditions of northwestern France, carbonates and other minerals tend to be leached downward, producing a degraded brown earth soil of higher acidity and lesser fertility. Finally, human action is an extremely important factor in soil quality. As soon as the original forest was cleared, some modification of the soil was inevitable. Generally, farmers through the ages have maintained or improved soil quality by draining and manuring. Especially noteworthy were the activities of Flemish peasants who virtually created their soil out of a marshy wilderness. The climate of France is generally favorable to cultivation. Most of France lies in the southern part of the temperate zone, although the subtropical zone encompasses its southern fringe. All of France is considered to be under the effect of oceanic influences, moderated by the North Atlantic Drift on the west and the Mediterranean Sea on the south. Rainfall is brought mainly by westerly winds from the Atlantic and is characterized by cyclonic depressions, with annual precipitation as more than 50 inches. The climate of France can be discussed according to three major climatic zones: oceanic, continental, and Mediterranean, with some variation in the Aquitaine Basin and in the mountains. Vegetation is closely related to climate, so in France, it is not surprising that there are two major but unequal divisions: the Holarctic province, and the smaller Mediterranean province. Most of France lies within the Holarctic biogeographic vegetational region, characterized by northern species, and it can be divided into three parts. A large area of western France makes up one part, which can be found in the north of the Charente River and includes most of the Paris Basin. You'll find here that the natural vegetation can be characterized by oak, chestnut, pine, and beech in uplands that receive more than 23.6 inches of annual rainfall. The vegetation of eastern France, constituting a second part of the Holarctic division, is of a more Central European type, with trees such as Norway maple, beech, pedunculate oak, and larch hornbeam is often present as a shrub layer under the oak. The various high mountain zones form a third Holarctic part, with cloudy and wet conditions. They have beech woods at lower elevations, giving way upward to fir, mountain pine, and larch but with much planted spruce. The second major vegetation division of the country lies within the Mediterranean climatic zone and provides a sharp contrast with the plant life elsewhere in France. The pronounced summer drought of this zone causes bulbous plants to die off in summer, and encourages xerophytic plants that retard water loss by means of spiny, woolly, or glossy leaves. These include the evergreen oak, the cork oak, and all the heathers, chastises, and lavenders. The fauna of France is relatively typical of Western European countries. Among the larger mammals are red deer, roe deer, and wild boar, which are still hunted. The fallow deer is rather rare. Among endangered species are the badger, the otter, the beaver, the tortoise, the marmot of the Alps, and the brown bear and the lynx of the Pyrenees. Seals have almost entirely disappeared from the French coasts. While French bird life is in general similar to that of its neighbors. Southern France is at the northern edge of the range of African migrants, and such birds as the flamingo, the Egyptian vulture, the black-winged stilt, the bee-eater, and the roller have habitats in southern France. The French are, paradoxically, strongly conscious of belonging to a single nation, but they hardly constitute a unified ethnic group by any scientific gauge. Before the official discovery of the Americas at the end of the 15th century, France, located on the western extremity of the Old World, was regarded for centuries by Europeans as being near the edge of the known world. France was, over the centuries, the field of numerous battles and of prolonged occupations before becoming in the 19th and especially in the 20th century, the prime recipient of foreign immigration into Europe, adding still other mixtures to the ethnic melting pot. Reflecting the presence of immigrants from North Africa, Algeria, and Morocco, France has one of Europe's largest Muslim populations. An estimated 5 million Muslims, a sizable percentage of them living in and around Marseille in southeastern France, as well as in Paris and Lyon. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to give a like, share, and subscribe.